Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and pranams to all of you. Thank you very much for joining in for our Bhagavad Gita study today. We'll start with the prayers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapatakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजना सहितं श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगणा ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादि पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रधायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्नि गौरदुषे नमः पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूप स्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकं हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपीश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लङ्घयति गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरून् दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यमीश्वरं हरि ओं तत्सत् गुरवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकाय तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तद्भक्ताय नमो नमः Hare Krishna. So we welcome all the devotees who joined us for our Bhagavad Gita study session today. We are on chapter number 13. So yesterday, prior to yesterday's class, we were discussing about the wonderful qualities that attracts the Supreme Personality of Godhead, starting with humility, and how we said Yasyasi Bhaktir Bhagavati Akinchana Sarvair Gunais Tatra Samasati Sura. That means all the good qualities of the demigods automatically come into a person who is simply practicing devotional service. Whereas Harava Bhaktisya Guto Mahan Guna Anoratena Sati Davato Bahihi. But somebody may have all the good qualities of this material world, like humility, giving charity, patience, tolerance, compassion, right, etc., etc. But if the essential quality of devotional service is not there, then manorathena sati davato bahihi. That means it's simply external and it is at the level of mental speculation and the titillation of the senses or satisfaction of one's own mind. Oh, I am such a wonderful person. I am giving charity. What will this person do if I don't give him? Right? So that is not the complete knowledge, right? We are able to give something to someone because the Supreme Personality of Godhead has allocated it to us, and it can be taken away from us also at any time. So to be falsely proud of anything is not the quality of a devotee. And the qualities of humility and tolerance and charity, etc., also will go out of the window when when these things are taken away from that person. Then he feels, oh, I've been cheated. Why bad things happen to good people like that, right? And in the and yesterday's session we saw how the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the original source of all sources, right? Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Nadir Adir Govindaha Sarva Karana Karanam. And we also saw how the Supreme Personality of Godhead creates this universe, maintains this universe, and also annihilates this universe, right? Sutre gana mani va, right? Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, sutre means I am holding, just like the thread holds all the pearls. Similarly, I am holding all of these universes. Mata parataram na anyat kinchit asti dhananjaya, right? So apart from me, there is nobody else who is actually taking care of all these universes, and the universes are functioning in a very efficient and effective way without any collusions, etc. Then we clearly know that it is only by the hand of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? And then there is another verse where it says that the Supreme Lord, actually his effulgence illuminates the spiritual world, right? Natad bhashete shuryo na shashanko na pavakaha. So that it says that there is no light, there is no need for a sun or a moon in the spiritual world, right? So why? Because everything is illuminated by simply the effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then we saw how everything or whatever we are able to see, the sun and the moon of this material world also represents the eyes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So everything, Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parastat. So he is just like the sun, he is eternally luminous. And the sun is just given as an example for us to have some basic understanding, right? Because we are in the material world, we understand only material objects. So because of that, the Lord is compared. So Namo Pankajanabhaya, Namo Pankajamalane, it's all compared. The lotus, it's compared to the lotus. Because the lotus is the only thing we can estimate with our material brain to understand the beauty of the Lord, right? Because the lotus is the most beautiful flower, right? Similarly, Bhagavatam is compared to Nigama Kalpataro or Galitam Phalam, the most mature fruit of the most the king of all fruits. Then we link it to mango, right? The mango is the most delicious fruit. So this must be like drinking this mango, delicious mango juice, right? Which is devoid of all its seeds and peel, and that much nourishing and that much delicious is the Bhagavatam, right? So these examples are given for us to get some idea. Otherwise, these examples are they probably express a minuscule of the glory of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? We say lotus feet of the Lord, we say Namo Pankaja Nabhaya, Namo Pankaja Maline, Namo Pankaja Netraya, Namaste Pankajangraye. Here we're talking about the Lord's navel being compared to the lotus, right? But the Lord's navel is much more beautiful. But it is that just that we don't have sufficient objects of this material world to make us understand. So that is why the lotus is compared. So similarly, the glow of the sun, the Lord's glow, the Lord's effulgence is like the glow of the sun. It is like the luminosity of the moon, of the sun. So what does it? Does it mean that the Lord's effulgence is only as much as the sun? No, the sun is just one. The sun is just the giving light in one of the universes, right? But the Lord has created so many universes, right? The Lord's expansion, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, Karadakashaya Vishnu, when he breathes in and out from his pores, right? So many Brahmandas, so many universes come out. And each universe, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu goes. And in each of the universes, there is one Brahma who sprouts out of the navel of Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. And each of Brahmas, where Brahma is doing the sub-creation, and each of that Brahmanda has one sun, right? If this is the glory of the sun, then how much more is the glory of the Lord, who is the source of unlimited material universes? Out of that, there is one material universe which is under the control of Brahma, right? Because Brahma is given the sub-creation or visarga potency by the Supreme Lord, and in that the sun is there, right? The sun is just one of the planets, right? And it is the most luminous. It gives us the sun gives us energy, the sun gives us light. Otherwise, we cannot see anything around us, right? So if this is the potency of the sun, how much greatly potent should the Lord be? He is the source of the suns of all the worlds, and not just the material worlds. He is also the source of the spiritual worlds. And it is said in Ishopanishad that the spiritual world is 3/4 and this material world is just 1/4, right? So if this is the glory of the sun, then how much more should be the glory of the Supreme Personality of God? All right, now let's move forward to text number 19. Today I'm going to start from text number 19. Yeah, devotees can raise your hands and then quickly let me share my screen. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are reading from chapter number 13, text number 19. Okay, so who will read? Okay, Roshan Prabhu. Okay, I think Roshan Prabhu has joined us for the first time today. It'll be nice if you can see who is Roshan Prabhu, if possible. Otherwise, you can start reading. Hare Krishna, can you unmute yourself? Okay, we'll start with Anusha Mataji, then Roshan Prabhu can get ready. Anusha Mataji, are you there?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranams.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, go ahead.
Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Iti kshetram
Anusha
tata
Mataji, you can also switch on your camera if it's possible. Is it possible? Okay, okay, go ahead. Mataji, you want to read? Yeah, go ahead. Okay, Anusha Mataji is giving her darshan. Yeah. So after Anusha Mataji, Roshan Prabhu can read. I would request if you can also switch on your camera and then unmute yourself and read the next verse. Yes, Mataji, go ahead.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Iti kshetram tata jnanam ज्ञेयं चोक्तं समासतः मद्भक्त एतद् विज्ञानः मद्भावयोपपधायते. Synonyms: iti, thus; kshetram, the field of activities; tata, also; jnanam, knowledge; jneyam, the knowable; cha, also; uktam, described; samashatah, in summary; mat bhaktah, my devotee; etat, all this; vijnana, vignaya, after understanding; madbhavaya, to my nature; upapadayate, attains. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thus, the field of activities, the body, knowledge, and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. Purport: the Lord has described in summary the body, knowledge, and the knowable. This knowledge is of three things: the knower, the knowable, and the process of knowing. Combined, these are called Vijnana, or the science of knowledge. Perfect knowledge can be understood by the unalloyed devotees of the Lord directly. Others are unable to understand. The monists say that at the ultimate stage, these three items become one, but the devotees do not accept this. Knowledge and development of knowledge mean understanding oneself in Krishna consciousness. We are being led by material consciousness, but as soon as we transfer all consciousness to Krishna's activities and realize that Krishna is everything, then we attain real knowledge. In other words, knowledge is nothing but the preliminary stage of understanding devotional service perfectly. In the 15th chapter, this will be very clearly explained. Now, to summarize, one may understand that verses 6 and 7, beginning from Mahabhutani and continuing through Chetana Dhrita, analyze the material elements and certain manifestations of the symptom of life. These combine to form the body or the field of activities. And verses 8 through 12, from Amanitvam through Tattvajnanartha Darshanam, describe the process of knowledge for understanding both types of knower of the field of activities, namely the soul and the super soul. Then through verses 13 through 18, beginning from Anadimatparam and continuing through Hridi Sarvasya Vishtitam, describe the soul and the supreme lord or the super soul. Thus, three items have been described: the field of activity, which is the body, the process of understanding, and both the soul and the super soul. It is especially described here that only the unalloyed devotees of the Lord can understand these three items clearly. So, for these devotees, Bhagavad Gita is fully useful. It is they who can attain the super goal, the nature of Supreme Lord Krishna. In other words, only devotees and not others can understand Bhagavad Gita and derive the desired result. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. So thank you. So I had muted myself because some sound was here. Okay. So basically, what are we saying here? The three subject matters is the Nyayam, Nyayam, and the process of understanding this knowledge. Right. The field of activity means the body is a kshetra. The Kshetra is the place where we perform our activities, and why we perform our activities and what activities we perform, what is the consciousness in which we need to perform the activity in the Kshetra, is the process of understanding who I am, who is the Supreme Lord, and what is the process by which I can be established in the constitutional position as a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is Nyayam. Nyayam means Jnanam means knowledge, right? What is my position? Nyayam means understanding the object of knowledge. Who is an object of knowledge? Krishna, the super soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the object of knowledge. And what is the process of knowing? It very clearly given by Lord Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. How can we get this jnanam? We can get this jnanam when we approach a bona fide spiritual master, render service to such a bona fide spiritual master, and inquire submissively from such a bona fide spiritual master. Serve and please the bona fide spiritual master. Then jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Such a spiritual master will automatically reveal the transcendental knowledge in the heart of the devotee or in the heart of the disciple, seeing the sincerity and the enthusiasm of the particular devotee to perform devotional service. So it is always the transcendental knowledge is not like a material knowledge. You go and pay money in a university, and then you demand that I have paid money for next 4 years. You're supposed to teach me, right? That's not how transcendental knowledge works. Transcendental knowledge works when by the process it's given by Lord Sri Krishna only in Bhagavad Gita, right? You have to serve with respect and with sincerity and with humility. And then once we serve and please the spiritual master, the spiritual master, the bona fide spiritual master will actually reveal the transcendental knowledge in the heart of the disciple. So this is the process of knowing. And whom we are supposed to know? We are supposed to know the name or the object of knowledge, who is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All right, let's move ahead. 13.20. Yeah, who's reading now? Next, Karpagavali Mataji, go ahead.
Yes, Mataji,
Okay,
thank
Roshan
you.
Prabhu. Okay, fine, go ahead.
Text 20. Prakrityam Purusham Chaiva Viti Anandi Uvapi Vikram Samcha Gunam Samcha
Vikramscha Gunamschaiva Vikaramscha
Vidhi Prakriti Sambhavan. Synonyms: Prakritim, material nature; Purusham, the living entities; Cha, also; Iva, certainly; Vidhi, you must know; Anadi, without beginning; Yubhav, both; Api, also; Vikram, transformation; Cha, also; Gunanan, the three modes of nature; Cha, also; Eva, certainly; Vidhi, no; Prakriti, material nature; Sambhavan, produced of. Translation by Prabhupada Kiji. Material nature and living entities should be understood by to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. Put by Prabhupada Kiji. By the knowledge given in this chapter, one can understand the body, the field of activities, and the knowers of the body, both the individual soul and the super soul. The body is the field of activity and is composed of material nature. The individual soul is that is embodied and enjoying the activities of the body is the Purusha or the living entity. He is one knower, the other is a super soul. Of course, it is to be understood that both the super soul and the individual entity are different manifestations of the Supreme Personality of God, and the living entity is in the category of his energy, and the super soul is in the category of his personal expansion. Both the material energy and the living entity are eternal. That is to say that they are existed before the creation. Material manifestation is from the energy of the Supreme Lord, and so also are the living entities. But the living entities are of the superior energy. Both the living entities and the material energy, material nature existed before this cosmos was manifested. Material nature was observed in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mahavishnu, and when it was required, it was manifested by the agency of Mahat Tattva. Similarly, the living entities are also in him, and because they are conditioned, they are averse to serving the Supreme Lord. Thus, they are not allowed to enter into the spiritual sky. But with the coming forth of the material nature, these living entities are again given a chance to act in the material world and prepare themselves to enter into the spiritual world. This is the mystery of this material creation. Actually, the living entity is originally the spiritual part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, but due to his rebellious nature, he is conditioned within the material nature. It really does not matter how these living entities or superior entities of the Supreme Lord have come into contact with the material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead knows, however, how and when this actually took place. In the scriptures, the Lord says that those acted by this material nature are undergoing a hard struggle for existence. But we should know it with certainty from the descriptions of these few verses that all transformations and influences of material nature by the three modes are also actions of material nature. All transformations and variety in respect to the living entities are due to the body. As far as spirit is concerned, living entities are all the same. Thank you, Mataji. Nandana.
Hare Krishna. Then
Thank you,
Pranam. Thank you, Mataji.
Mataji.
So here in this particular purport, Prabhupada has given a very, very important concept. So Prabhupada has given a very important concept. And what is that concept? The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate knower. He knows everything, right? But sometimes we don't understand what is the plan of the Lord. Sometimes we are so confused what to do, what not to do, because we are not able to see the full picture, right? But the great devotees of the Lord, they align themselves with the Lord's plan so much that they are never in anxiety, because they don't have a separate plan, right? When we have a separate plan, then we think, oh, whether this plan will work or not, and then we get anxiety. But when we are completely aligned to the plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then there is no anxiety. Right? The Prabhupada is saying here that we are all in this material world because we all wanted to enjoy independently. Right? We want to do enjoy independent of the Lord, and because of that rebellious nature, we are in this material world. Right? And Prabhupada also tells in one of his lectures that an intelligent person does not contemplate on why I am here, how I came here. Whereas an intelligent person, what he will think, okay, I am situated in a bad situation right now. How can I get myself to a better situation? How can I escape this prison house of the material world and go back to Godhead? So an intelligent person is focusing on what he can do in the future. It is only a person who has his victim mentality. Oh, why bad things are happening to me? I am such a great, wonderful soul, right? When such kind of attitude is there, then what we do is simply lament about our situation, doing nothing about helping ourselves get to a better situation, right? So those who are intelligent, what do? They know that, okay, I have somehow landed in this situation because I have rebelled. Right? We know the principle that somehow we rebelled against the pleasure of the Lord. We want to enjoy independently. That's why we are in the material world. So now is there a way for me to go back to Godhead? So that is what the devotees of the Lord are interested in, because they want to understand their mistakes, learn from their mistakes, and identify the way forward. Right? It is no use brooding over the past. Whatever has happened. But is there a way to go ahead? Is there a way to go back to Godhead? And that is what is the matter of interest to a particular devotee. That's why a devotee does not engage in mental speculation or philosophical study. Oh, all this must have happened, that must have happened, right? So many things we can assume that could have happened, this could have happened. But is it helping me go forward in my journey of devotional service, in my journey of perfection of this human form of life? So that is what is important. All right. So let's go on. Text number 21. Okay. Roshan Prabhu, please read.
हरे कृष्णा जय श्रील प्रभुपाद कार्यकारणकर्तृत्वे हेतु प्रकृतिरुच्यते पुरुष सुख दुःखानां भोग भोक्तृत्वे हेतुरुच्यते कार्य of effect karana and cause kartitve in the matter of creation hetu the instrument prakriti material nature uchyate is said to be purusha the living entity sukha of happiness dukkhanam and distress bhokritve in enjoyment hetu the instrument uchyate is said to be Translation: Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The different manifestations of body and senses among the living entities are due to material nature. There are 84 lakh different species of life, and these varieties are creations of the material nature. They arise from the different sensual pleasures of the living entity, who thus desires to live in this body or that. When he is put into different bodies, he enjoys different kinds of happiness and distress. His material happiness and distress are due to his body and not to himself as he is. In this original state, there is no doubt of enjoyment. Therefore, that is his real state. Because of the desire to lord is over the material nature, he is in the material world. In the spiritual world, there is no such thing. The spiritual world is pure, but in the material world, everyone is struggling hard to acquire different kinds of pleasures of the body. It might be more clear to state that this body is the effect of the senses. The senses are instruments for gratifying desire. Now, the sum total, body and instrument senses, is offered by material nature. And as will be clear in the next verse, the living entity is blessed or damned with circumstances according to his past desire and activity. According to one's desires and activities, material nature places one in various residential quarters. The being himself is the cause of his attaining such residential quarters and his attendant enjoyment or suffering. Once placed in some particular kind of body, he comes under the control of nature because the body, being matter, acts according to the laws of nature. At that time, the living entity has no power to change that law. Suppose an entity is put into the body of a dog. As soon as he is put into the body of a dog, he must act like a dog. He can't act otherwise. And if the living entity is put into the body of a hog, then he is forced to eat stool and act like a hog. Similarly, if the living entity is put into the body of demigod, he must act according to his body. This is the law of nature. But in all circumstances, the super soul is with the individual soul. That is explained in the Vedas, Mundaka Upanishad 3.1.1 as follows: Dva Suparna Sayuja Sukhaya Sakhaya. The Supreme Lord is so kind upon the living entity that he always accompanies the individual soul and in all circumstances is present as the super soul or Param Atma. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Okay, if at the end of the session, if it's possible, you can show your darshan also. And I'd like to thank you. Thank you for joining us for our Bhagavad Gita study today. I believe you've joined us for the first time. So, in this particular verse, right, Prabhupada is explaining how there are 8.4 million species already available in this material world. According to whatever are our desires or our previous activities, we decide, I want to go into the body of a hog. Right? Jalaja Navalakshani Stavara Laksha Vimshati Kramayo Rudra Sankhyakaa Pakshinam Dashalakshana Trimsha Lakshani Pashabaha Chatur Lakshani Manushaha. So the 4 lakh species of human beings, there is a variety even within human beings. Right? Within human beings also, they, according to the level of consciousness, according to what we have prepared, according to our past desires, or according to our past activities, we have already decided what kind of a body I should get in the future. Right? If we've made our consciousness like that of a hog, like Prabhupada explains here, if you keep, the hog is automatically, with the 3 modes of material nature, the hog is so conditioned to think like a hog. Right? What does a hog eat? The hog eats the stool. If you keep nice pineapple halwa and the stool before the hog will think, wow, I got stool. What is this? Then it will throw away kick away the pineapple halwa and think that I am enjoying. Who are the people who eat that pineapple halwa? Isn't it? So we think we are enjoying, but it is deplorable, right? We can also say that in terms of the demigods in us. Sometimes we find some dress very beautiful. Oh, I want to wear that dress. And then the demigods will be thinking, "She, what a taste. Is this enjoyment? Is this actually so deplorable?" Like that, as a consciousness evolves, those things that we find are so enjoyable that I can't live without it, I will die without it, those are deplorable as we evolve our consciousness and go to higher states of consciousness. So much so that when we reach a consciousness that my pleasure is only in serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? And then one thinks that everything else is, all of the happiness of this material world are graham hi tucham. They are so, what do you call, insignificant, right? I'm not able to get the right word. Tucham means it's not even worth the consideration. They're so insignificant that they don't need to occupy so much time of my mind or my thinking or my intelligence. I don't have to think so much, that I want to eat this, I want to wear this, I want to enjoy this, right? When I have, vyavasayatmika buddhir ekaha kurunandana. When my one pointed desire is to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I will get so much pleasure that all of these material pleasures become so insignificant that I don't even want to care or spend any amount of time in actually getting those, right? That is what is mentioned here, right? That when one is placed in the body of a demigod, he thinks of higher levels of enjoyment, right? He has a higher tenure of life. He thinks of better enjoyment, right? Drinking the somarasa or whatever, right? But even Brahma Bhuvana Loka, Punaravartino Arjuna, you enjoy very much. Whether you are a human being or a demigod or a pig or a, or a dog, whatever may be. According to the three modes of material nature, we think we are enjoying, but we are conditioning ourselves more and more into the complexities of the material nature, Maya. Prabhupada says in his lecture, right? The more we are trying to exploit the material nature, we are entangling ourselves more and more in the complexities of Maya, right? We are entangling ourselves more and more into the cycle of Janma, Mrityu, Jara and Vyadhi, right? So in this way, Prabhupada mentions that we need to develop a higher taste. Param Drishtva Nivartate. When we develop the higher taste and service becomes our activity throughout our life, then at the time of death, we will not be thinking of anything else. We will not be thinking of, oh, I wanted to wear this, I wanted to eat this, right? All those things will not be there. What will we be thinking? Oh, how will I serve the Lord? Right? Oh, today I have not been able to chant Hare Krishna, so I should be chanting Hare Krishna. Like that, when my mind is always thinking, oh, I should be chanting Hare Krishna. In that frame of mind, when I leave my body, then yad gatvana nivartante tad dhama paramam mama antakale cha mamiva smaran muktva kalevaram yaprayati samadbhavam yati nati atra samshayah. No doubt, you think of me at the time of death, you will come back to me. So is it possible to think of Krishna at the time of death? Let me enjoy during my life. It is not possible, because it is a flashback that appears at the time of death. Whatever I have done throughout my life, if I have done only devotional service throughout my life, if my only was to please Guru and Gauranga through all of my activities, through the performance of my Swadharma, then Krishna will ensure that I remember Krishna at the time of death, and it is only by the mercy of the Lord that we are able to remember the Lord. It is not like Ajamila thought. Then let me also think, right? Ajamila had so much of Sukriti that the Supreme Lord enabled him to name his son as Narayan, right? And that is why he thought of his son and he got a second opportunity, right? But for us, we have to ensure that we live our life in such a way that we always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna, so that at the time of death, Krishna will ensure the remembrance of the Lord, because at that time, Kapha, Vata, Pitta are all imbalanced, right? Even when our mind is working well, when our senses are working well, half the time we forget, oh, I was about to do something. What did I do? What was I thinking? Suddenly some phone call comes. We pick up the phone, we forget what we were thinking to do. And then they rack our brains. 5 minutes back also we have such poor memory in Kali Yuga. What we will think of Krishna at the time of death, isn't it? So we have to train our mind to always remember Krishna. Mantrayati iti mantra. The more we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we will be able to enable ourselves to remember Krishna always. When we remember Krishna always with endeavor, right? Right now we are not in the Raganuga stage that Krishna's remembrance is always on my mind. Our mind is always deviating towards lower things. That is why we are sadhaka bhaktas. We need to bring it back. Param drishtva nivartate. Bring the mind back to the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Bring the mind back to serving the Lord. in a way that I am not thinking about my sense gratification. I am thinking about how to please the Lord. In that way, when we continuously bring our mind back to remembering Krishna all the time throughout our life, then at the time of death, it will be possible for us to remember Krishna by the causeless mercy of Krishna himself, by the causeless mercy of Guru and Gauranga. All right, let's move forward. Text number 22, very, very important text. This will be our text for memorization. So, Shobha Mataji, please note. Text number 22, 13.22. Who will read now? Sridhar Prabhu, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Dandot Pranam Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. See, I'm not very sure if I'm calling out in the order of raised hands, because that's how it is. It's figuring out in my screen. I just realized because Roshan Prabhu had put up his hand in the beginning itself, but his hand was showing, later on. So please pardon me in case I'm not calling in the right order. All right. Yes, Prabhu, go ahead. Sridhar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Purusha Prakristo hi pungyade Prakriti Jnan Gunan Karanam Guna Sankhosya Sat Satyoni Janmaso. Purusha, the living entity, Prakritistan, being situated in the material energy, he certainly pungyade enjoys Prakriti Jnan produced by material nature, Gunan, the mode of nature, Karanam, the cause, Gunasankhya, the association with the mode of nature, Asya, of living entity, Sat Asat, in good or bad, Yoni, species of life, Janmashu, in birth, Hare Krishna. The translation by Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. The living entity in material nature thus follows the way of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among the various spaces. Purport. The verse is very important for an understanding of how the living entities transmigrate from one body to another. It is explained in the second chapter that the living entity is transmitting from one body to another just as one changes dress. The change of dress is due to his attachment of material existence. As long as he captivated by the false manifestation, he has to continue transmigrating from one body to another. Due to his desire to lord it all over material nature, he is put into such undesirable circumstances. Under the influence of material desire, the entity is born sometimes as a demigod, sometimes as a man, sometimes as a beast, as a bird, as a worm, as a adequate, as a acquit, as a saintly man, as a bug. This is going on. And in all the cases, the living entity thinks himself to be the master of his circumstances, yet he is under the influence of material nature. How he is put into such different bodies is explained here. It is due to association with a different mode of nature. One has to rise, therefore, above the three material modes and become situated in the transcendental position. This is called Krishna consciousness. Unless one is situated in Krishna consciousness, his material consciousness will oblige him to transfer from one body to another because he has material desire since time immemorial. But he has to change that. The consumption, that change can be affected only by hearing from authoritative sources. The best example is here. Arjuna, he is hearing the signs of God from Krishna. The living entity, if he submits to the hearing process, will lose his long cherished desire to dominate material nature, and gradually and proportionately, as he reduces his long desire to dominate, he becomes to enjoy spiritual happiness. In the Vedic mantra, it is said that he becomes learned in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He proportionately relinquishes his eternal blissful life. Hare Krishna. Dandot Pranam Mataji.
Thank you. Yeah, so in continuation of our example of how the hog wants to eat the stool and thinks that it's enjoying itself. Similarly, according to the three modes of material nature, Prakriti, Purushaha Prakritistohi, Bhunkte. Bhunkte means you are trying to enjoy. Who is it trying to enjoy? The Purusha is trying to enjoy the Prakriti, which is correct, right? Purusha is supposed to enjoy Prakriti, but we are not Purushas. right? Except for Krishna. Ekala Ishvara Krishna Ara Sabha Britya. We are all Prakriti, right? Only Krishna is the original Purusha. So we all, just like the Prakriti, the material nature is there under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all we Jiva Tattvas are also energies of the Lord. And hence we are supposed to act according to the instructions of the Lord. But what are we doing? Bhungte Prakriti Jan Gunan. Bhungte means we are trying to enjoy, we are trying to exploit the material nature, right? Because material nature is Jada and we are spiritual, right? But at the same time, we should understand that as a spiritual energy, I'm Tatastha Shakti, right? I can be inclined towards devotional service, I can be inclined towards sense gratification. So whenever I'm inclined towards sense gratification, I am preparing for my next body, which can be any one of the 8.4 million species. So what is my thought process whenever I perform an action? That will clearly tell us, right? A consolidation of all. And whatever is our thought process, if we are continuously into sense gratification, it will be more and more difficult for us to make the right choices. We will only think of what will gratify my senses right now. And then I will make my choices like that. And then to be able to take the right choice becomes more and more difficult. The more number of times we choose sense gratification, the more difficult it will become for us to make the right choice, right? And how do we come up to this point of making the right choice? Simply by hearing from a bona fide spiritual master. Simply, if one submits to the hearing process, one will be able to come out of this desire to dominate material nature. One will come out of this desire to enjoy sense gratification in every instance. What is in it for me? How can I enjoy this particular situation? What can I do now so that my enjoyment can be magnified? Right? We will move from Bhoga Vritti to Seva Vritti. How will we make the transition from Bhoga Vritti to Seva Vritti? Simply by surrendering to a bona fide guru, by hearing gradually from a bona fide guru, our desire to enjoy material nature, our desire to enjoy sense gratification, to that extent will get reduced. The more we hear from a bona fide guru, the more we hear Bhagavad Gita, the more we hear from Krishna book, the more we hear from the Vedic scriptures and study the Vedic scriptures under a bona fide spiritual master, the more we will be able to make the right choices. Right? As long as Radhanath Maharaj, I mentioned the other class, talks about a good dog and a bad dog, right? The more we feed the good dog, that means the more we feed, the more we take decisions which are pleasing to Guru and Gauranga, the good dog will become more and more strong. The bad dog will die. But the more and more we say yes to sense gratification, the bad dog becomes more and more strong. And then the good dog dies down. Then it becomes more and more difficult because we don't even hear the sound of the good dog. The bad dog is roaring so voraciously, isn't it? And then we continue to engage in this process of sense gratification. That is why every choice we make, we need to understand, contemplate, and make the right choice. And then when we get into the habit of making the right choice by constantly hearing from a bona fide spiritual master, then this becomes a lifestyle for us, right? Nowadays, we don't wake up and we want coffee. We don't want, every weekend we have to go out, we have to watch a movie, right? All those things have completely got out of our system because we have surrendered to a guru, right? I can give my own example. Every Friday I used to go for a movie, right? Every time the CA exam is over, then, after hard work, it is now merry time, what is that? Work hard and play hard or something like that, right? So we were so much focused on our material accomplishments. We give our life to studying and doing, and then once that exam is over, then you go and enjoy. So our life goes in this working hard for material ambitions and then enjoying ourselves. This is what we think is enjoyment. But it goes with its own, understanding, right? When we study Bhagavad Gita, we understand that those were the years I wasted. So much of my years I wasted, right? Now, when I'm given a choice, I think back to see how I wasted my time, right? My CA, I could have studied and I could have cleared my CA without so much of endeavor also, and without so much of after effects of enjoyment also. Right? The after effects that, it leads to overeating, then it leads to a headache. When you go and watch a 3-hour movie, it results in headache. Right? At that time, we think, okay, I enjoyed the movie. Right? The after effects we don't realize. So similarly, even now, right, we think that even while performing devotional service, sometimes we think, okay, I'm enjoying this devotional service. So Prabhupada says you should not even be attached to one particular service. You should be ready to perform devotional service for the pleasure of Guru and Gauranga. So whatever service is given to you by the authority, we should be able to perform that service. Of course, in the initial stages, it starts with susukam kartum avyayam. Whatever we are good at, whatever we are, whatever we want to serve the Lord, right? I want to eat pizza. I make pizza at home, offer it to Krishna, and have Krishna prasadam. But that is not the end all, right? That is a sadhaka stage. At the pure devotee stage, where we want to be, we want to serve Krishna with what he likes, with what Krishna likes, right? And how will we get the knowledge? We will get that knowledge by hearing from a bona fide spiritual master. Jnaninas tattva darshinaha. They already know the truth. When we attain that stage where we want to simply work for the pleasure of Guru and Gauranga, things will be revealed in our heart by our spiritual master, right? Until such stage, what are we supposed to do? Whatever is our material desire, dovetail everything in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead until we reach that stage that we perform everything only exclusively for their pleasure and not at all for any kind of sense gratification. Until we reach that stage, we need to dovetail our desires, right? The other day we were discussing, if I like to sing, like Madhvi Mataji is here, she likes to paint. She paints very beautifully. So she paints Radha Krishna forms. She paints Krishna Balaram forms, right? So in that way, we dovetail our propensities, our abilities, our resources in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And by doing that over a long period of time, we will reach that stage where we are able to do anything and everything for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? So on that note, let's continue. Now, this is also a very beautiful verse. Okay, but maybe we'll take this for the next week. Okay, Shobha Mataji, note this down for the next week. We'll Monday. We will take up this verse for next week memorization. Okay, let me share my screen. Sorry. Okay, text number 23, 13.23. Who's reading? Shri Priya Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji, pranams.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
Text 23. Upadrishta Anumantacha Bharta Bhukta Maheshwara Paramatmeti Chapyukto Dehesmin Purusha Para. Synonyms: Upadrishta, overseer; Anumanta, permitter; Cha, also; Bharta, master; Bhokta, supreme enjoyer; Maha Ishvara, the supreme lord; Paramatma, the super soul; Iti, also; Cha, and; Api, indeed; Ukta, it said; Dehe, in the body; Asmin, this; Purusha, enjoyer; Para, transcendental. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the super soul. Purport: it is stated here that the super soul, who is always with the individual soul, is the representation of the Supreme Lord. He is not an ordinary living entity, because the monist philosophers take the knower of the body to be one. They think that there is no difference between the super soul and the individual soul. To clarify this, Lord says that he is represented as Paramatma in the body. He is different from the individual soul. He is para, transcendental. The individual soul enjoys the activities of a particular field, but the super soul is present not as finite enjoyer, nor as one taking part in the bodily activities, but as the witness, the overseer, permitter, and the supreme enjoyer. His name is Paramatma, not Atma, and he is transcendental. It is distinctly clear that the Atma and the Paramatma are different. The super soul, the Paramatma, has legs and hands everywhere, but the individual soul does not. And because the Paramatma is the supreme Lord, he is present within to sanction the individual soul's desiring material enjoyment. Without the sanction of the supreme soul, the individual soul cannot do anything. The individual is Bhukta, or the sustained. The Lord is Bhokta, or the maintainer. There are innumerable living entities, and he is staying in them as a friend. The fact is that every individual living entity is eternally part and parcel of Supreme Lord, and both of them are very intimately related as friends. But the living entity has a tendency to reject the sanction of Supreme Lord and act independently in an attempt to dominate nature, and because he has this tendency, he is called the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord. The living entity can be situated either in the material energy or in the spiritual energy. As long as he is conditioned by the material energy, the Supreme Lord, as his friend, the super soul, stays with him just to get him to return to the spiritual energy. The Lord is always eager to take him back to the spiritual energy, but due to his minute independence, the individual entity is continually rejecting the association of spiritual light. This misuse of independence is the cause of his material strife in the conditioned nature. The Lord, therefore, is always giving instruction from within and from without. From without, he gives instruction as stated in Bhagavad Gita, and from within, he tries to convince the living entity that his activities in the material field are not conducive to real happiness. Just give it up and turn your fate towards me. Then you will be happy, he says. Thus, the intelligent person who places his faith in the Paramatma or Supreme Personality of Godhead begins to advance toward a blissful eternal life of knowledge. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you.
Krishna. Yeah, we discussed this in detail actually. We discussed about how the Lord never interferes with the free will of the living entity, right? Just like the Lord does not interfere with our free will, but the Lord is always available, right? The Prabhupada gives example of how there are two birds sitting in a tree. One bird is always looking at the other bird, right? Upadrashta anumantacha. As a permitter, as a witness, he just wants to see if this bird will anytime turn around and look at me. I'm here to give the guidance. I'm here to take this soul back home, back to Godhead. But this person is not interested in me. This person is continuously engaged in so many activities. Does not have the time to even look at me. Right? The Lord, like we said, as Jiva Tattvas, we are Tatastha Shakti. Sometimes we incline towards the material energy of the Lord, and sometimes to the spiritual energy of the Lord. When we incline to the spiritual energy of the Lord, then the Lord intervenes and tells us what to do, what not to do, as the Lord in our heart, as Paramatma. But when we are Sadhaka Bhaktas, then what happens? Then we have so much of lust, anger, greed, pride, and illusion that we cannot hear the voice of the Lord from the heart. In such a case, the Lord also helps us from outside. How does he help that? Through the spiritual master. The Lord tells us and speaks to us in a language that we can understand through our material ears. We can hear and we can apply it in our life. So in this way, the Lord teaches us both from our heart as well as also from externally so that we can hear the instructions of the spiritual master, we can implement in our life. And in this way, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, the purification of the heart happens. And then we slowly, gradually come to the situation where we can even hear the voice of the Paramatma or voice of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from our heart. But to attain that stage, we have to go through the process of Bhakti Yoga, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, Mandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. Then we will become happy. We will become genuinely happy when we are able to hear and understand the instructions of the Lord and live our life accordingly. Until such time also we can be blissful. Until the time we perfect our lives, in that case also we can become extremely blissful if we are simply following in the instructions of our spiritual master and living our life following the instructions. Then also the life will be blissful. Susukam kartum avyayam. Engaging in devotional service is the only way by which we can attain eternal happiness. There is no other way. There is no other way. There is no other way. All right, let's move ahead. Text number 24. Okay, who will read this? Okay, Rajneesh Prabhu. And then Sudha Mataji, and then Sindhu Mataji, Leela Nandini Mataji. All right, so we'll do Rajneesh Prabhu can read the verse. Sudha Mataji can read. Rajneesh Prabhu can read the verse and synonyms. Sudha Mataji can read the translation and purport. Like that we will do. We will end with 25 today. Yeah. All right. Rajneesh Prabhu, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam. Yes.
Yo evam veti purusham prakritim cha gunai sarvtha vartamanopi nasubhuyo vijayati. Synonyms. Yah, anyone who evam, thus veti, understands purusham, the living entity, prakritam, material nature, sa, and guna, the modes of material nature, saha, with, sarvtha, in all ways, vartamana, being situated, api, in spite of, na, never, sa, he, bhuyaha, again, abhijayate, takes his birth. translation
Translation.
and
Yeah.
purport
Oh, okay,
by
okay. Sudha
Sri
Mataji can.
Gaur. Hanji,
Yeah.
okay.
Sudha Mataji, go ahead.
Hare
Yeah.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Danat Pranam. Thank you.
Dandat, madam.
Dandavats, Mataji.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. Purport. Clear understanding of material nature, the super soul, the individual soul, and their interrelation makes one eligible to become liberated and turn to the spiritual atmosphere without being forced to return to this material nature. This is the result of knowledge. The purpose of knowledge is to understand distinctly that the living entity has by chance fallen into this material existence. By his personal endeavor in association with authorities, saintly persons, and a spiritual master, he has to understand his position and then revert to spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness by understanding Bhagavad Gita as it is explained by the personality of Godhead. Then it is certain that he will never come again into this material existence. He will be transferred into the spiritual world for a blissful eternal life of knowledge. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram, Patitam Mam Vishme Bhavamudo, Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja, Sita Dhuli, Sadrasham Vichintaya. Somehow or the other, I fall into this ocean of material existence. Right? Patitam, I have fallen down. Patitam Mam Vishme Bhavamudo, Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja. Please pick me and place me at the atom of your, as an atom at your divine lotus feet. Tava Pada Pankaja, Sitam Dhuli, as like a dust. Right? I simply want to remain a dust, but at your lotus feet. Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja, Sita Dhuli, Sadrisham Vichintaya. Right? So this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's prayer, very, very high level prayer. Right? So sometimes, sometimes we, even though we don't, like Arjuna also asked this question to Lord Shri Krishna, even though I don't want to commit sinful activities, why am I forced to commit certain sinful activities? Right? It is only because of Krishna tells Arjuna, right? It is lust only, Arjuna, right? Kama esha, krodha esha, rajoguna samudbhava. So it all starts with kama. It all starts with the desire to enjoy this material world, desire to enjoy independent of the Lord. So when we take association of the Lord by because every morning chanting, right? Many of you all join for the Brahma Muhurta chanting session, isn't it? 5 to 7:15 a.m. I would request all of you to join in at least for a couple of rounds when we chant with Srila Prabhupada, right? So those 2 hours or 2 hours 15 minutes are our personal association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The more we take association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the more we will get purified, right? And similarly, when we take association of what is that? Sakshat Haritvena Samasta Shastre Yuktas Tathabhav Yate Eva Shadbihi Kintu Prabhorya Priya Eva Tasya Pande Guru Shri Charanaravindam. The spiritual master should be regarded as equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In fact, when Acharya told me who is Krishna, otherwise I wouldn't have known that this person is Krishna, isn't it? So that is why it is said that one should offer equal respect and obeisances to the spiritual master as much as one offer obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is only by the association of the spiritual master. Here we are referring to Siksha Gurus as well as our Diksha Guru, who is telling us what to do, what not to do, so that we can advance in devotional service. In this way, when we offer respect, when we follow the instructions of our gurus, Yadgatvana Nivartante Tadhama Paramam Mama, we will get transferred to that spiritual world from where we will not come back. All right. Let's move ahead. Text number 25. Okay, who's reading? Okay, Sindhu Mataji, read the words and the synonyms, and Leelanandini Mataji can read the translation and purport. Yes, Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, pranams Mataji.
Pranams, Mataji.
Text 25, 13.25. Dhyanenatmani pashyanti kechid atmanamatmana anye sankhena yogena karma yogena chapare. Synonyms: Dhyanena, by meditation, Atmani, within the self, Pashyanti, see, Kechit, some, Atmanam, the super soul, Atmana, by the mind, Anye, others, Sankhena, philosophical discussion, Yogena, by the yoga system, Karma Yogena, by activities without fruitive desires, cha also apare others. Hare Krishna
Yeah.
Mataji. Translation
Leelanandini Mataji.
Hare
Leelanandini
Krishna.
Mataji. Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna
Yeah.
Mataji. Dandat pranam.
Dandat pranam, Mataji. Hari bol.
Hare bol. Translation purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Some perceive the super soul within themselves through meditation, others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires. But the Lord informs Arjuna that the conditioned souls can be divided into two classes as far as man's search for self-realization is concerned. Those who are atheists, agnostics, and skeptics are beyond the sense of spiritual understanding. But there are others who are faithful in their understanding of spiritual life, and they are called introspective devotees, philosophers, and workers who have renounced fruitive results. Those who always try to establish the doctrine of monism are also counted among the atheists and agnostics. In other words, only the devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are best situated in spiritual understanding because they understand that beyond this material nature are the spiritual world and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is expanded as the Paramatma, the Super Soul in everyone, the all-pervading Godhead. Of course, there are those who try to understand the Sankhya philosophers and understand the supreme truth by cultivation of knowledge, and they can be counted in the class of the faithful. The Sankhya philosophers analyze this material world into 24 elements, and they place the individual soul as the 25th item. When they are able to understand the nature of the individual soul to be transcendental to the material elements, they are able to understand also that above the individual soul, there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the 26th element. Thus, gradually, they also come to the standard of devotional service in Krishna consciousness. Those who work without fruity results are also perfect in their attitude. They are given a chance to advance to the platform of devotional service in Krishna consciousness. Here it is stated that there are some people who are pure in consciousness and who try to find out the super soul by meditation. And when they discover the super soul within themselves, they become transcendentally situated. Similarly, there are others who also try to understand the Supreme Soul by cultivation of knowledge, and there are others who cultivate the Hatha Yoga system and who try to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by childish activities. Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna. Thank you so much,
Hare
Mataji.
Bol.
Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Jai.
Childish activities, right? We all know how difficult it is to perform all these Ashtanga yogas and all, right? Because because see, we have not even realized as much as these yogis have realized. But we are supposed to get a higher destination, even better than the yogis. So that is the easy path that is given to us by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Right? So we cannot control the mind. We cannot sit in meditation even for 2 minutes, then we go to sleep. That's why Prabhupada has given us the formula: chant loudly. Here you are chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra with attention, with absorption. Right? So practical tips for this age of Kali have been given by our acharyas. So otherwise we close our eyes and we go on meditation, we'll go on yoga nidra. Right? And then we don't know when we are completely sleeping and we don't even have consciousness of what we are doing. Right? Yoga, all of these processes will take us back home, back to Godhead. But how many lifetimes it will take, right, for us to perfect this Ashtanga yoga? And so many steps are there, right, until Samadhi, right? It starts with Yama Niyama, right? And then you have Dhyana, and then, meditating pranayama, what is it? Pranayama, Pratyahara. And then even when you're doing pranayama and all, we do it at so much of a gross bodily platform. We are more bothered about where the hand should be, which inhale you have to do, which nose you have to inhale, which nose you have to exhale. Right? You're so much gross. Right? How can we understand the Sukshma Swarup of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Right? You're so gross. We want to understand the physical movements. Right? You're so much. That's what we are. Yoga and everything has been brought down to some kind of an aerobic exercise today, isn't it? So what is the purpose of doing all of this? Yoga means to connect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to understand our position as a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to re-establish our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to reawaken our love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that can be best achieved only when we hear about the Lord from a bona fide representative of the Lord who has realized this transcendental knowledge and who is giving it to us. Right? Although we are not qualified, just because this personality who already understands the Supreme Lord is simply blessing us, we are getting it very easily in this age of Kali. Right? So simply Hare Rama, Hare Namaiva Kevalam. Kalau Nastyeva 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 Gatiranyata. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. Other than chanting Hare Krishna, other than chanting Hare Krishna, other than chanting Hare Krishna and following the ABCD square principles given by Prabhupada, there is no other way for self-realization in this age of Kali. And this is the most easiest process given to the most degraded people of the most degraded yuga, which is this Kali Yuga. Kala, what is that? Prayen alpa yusha sabya kalavasmin yugejana manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya upadrataha. We are lazy, we are misguided, we are quarrelsome, we have very low ayu, right? With all of this, what is the one process? Right? Katvanga Maharaj, he asked, the demigods were so pleased with Katvanga Maharaj that he said, okay, we will give you all the opulence. Katvanga Maharaj said, okay, I'm happy to take all the opulences, but how long do I have to live? And then the demigods, they have this power, right? So the demigods checked and told him, okay, you are only going to live for another muhurta, right? Then what is the use of getting all these opulences? I'm not able to, one muhurta is only there. So he was so intelligent, immediately, of course, it is not by chance, right? He himself served the demigod so much, right? That the Lord was pleased with him. And so immediately he went back home, back to Godhead, simply by smaranam, simply by remembering the Lord, right? And we also know Prahlad Maharaj, he also perfected his life by remembering. And how do we always remember the Lord and never forget the Lord? In this age of Kali, it is simply by Shravanam and Kirtanam. Chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra and hear it with all attention. Hear it with absorption. That is the process for always remembering Krishna in this age of Kali. So with that, we will end our session today. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Srila Gurudev ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. So we'll quickly do Harinam Sankirtan. We'll come back to the two devotees who raise their hands. If they have any question, they have to switch on their cameras and give darshan. Isn't it? That's the rule of our Zoom session, isn't it? Okay, Leela Nandan Mataji just put down her hand. I don't know if she didn't have a question or if it is for, is not able to give darshan today. Mataji, you can still ask your question. I was just joking. All right. So all of our devotees wanted to read. So I think most of you read. If you have not read, then we'll start our tomorrow session with you. Okay, Leela Nandan Mataji also giving darshan. So quickly we'll all ask all the devotees. How many? There are 22 devotees. So we'll have darshan of all the 22 devotees in the next 3 minutes. All right. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadeeshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radharara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadrama Jaya Sudarshana Jaya Balagopal Jaya Radha Krishna Jaya Radha Madha Jaya Radha Rasa Bihari Radha Rasa Bihari Radha Rasa Bihari Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Sham Sundar Radha Madhava Radha Giridhari Sri Radhe Jayo Radhe Radhe Jayo Radhe Radhe Jayo Radhe Radhe Jayo Sri Radhe Jayo Sadguru Swami Jai Guru Parampara Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Guru Devanikai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Srila Gurudev ki jai, Anand Puri Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. So I am having darshan of Shobha Mataji, Sridhar Prabhu, Rohini Mataji, Karpagavali Mataji, Shri Priya Mataji, Harjeet Mataji, and her little son Namesh Prabhu. Namesh Prabhu attends all Brahma Muhurta chanting sessions. He is up in the morning. I don't know if Mataji wakes him up or he wakes up Mataji, but both of them are there for all the Brahma Muhurta programs. Yeah, thank you, Mataji. You are very inspiring. Sindhu Mataji, Lila Nandini Mataji, Roshan Prabhu ki jai. Thank you so much for joining in, and thank you for giving us your darshan also. Please do join in whenever possible. Anjana Mataji, Rajneesh Prabhu, Shubhangi Keshavi Mataji, Madhvi Mataji, Navkishori Mataji, Anusha Mataji, Sudha Mataji, Bhatia Mataji also, I believe, has joined us for the first time today. So we'd like to thank our first time devotees, Roshan Prabhu, Bhatia Mataji, by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, thanking them and requesting them to please do join us in all the sessions if possible. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. All right, so thank you all for your wonderful darshan. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu bhyevacha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada Srila Gurudev ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much. We meet at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, Indian Standard Time, for our Japa session, along with our Namesh Prabhu and all the wonderful devotees who join us for our Brahma Muhurta chanting session. And then we'll meet tomorrow, Saturday. So 2 days we will contemplate. Please do join our festival group. Tomorrow we will be posting our first bhajan, where we are contemplating on the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we will be focusing, we'll be singing Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Vrindavan. So Shri Govinda, Gopinatha, Madan Mohan. Right? So that is our first bhajan for meditation this week. If you're not yet part of the festival group, please do join us now. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada Srila Gurudev ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.